Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt, and this is session 15 of the Provokers Bleakwrath, entitled The Vault of Aeras, Part 3, because I'm bad at planning, and this turned into, went from a two-part dungeon crawl into a three-part that had a year wait in between. So we did a Star Trek Deep Space Nine on you. I hope that's okay. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. You likely have noticed that we are down a player tonight. We are missing our good friend Mike, who plays Edric. He was unable to make it tonight due to a work scheduling issue. We were super bummed about it, but we decided to go ahead and play anyway. And hopefully, with all things considered, hopefully Mike will be here in the next session. So, uh, yeah, I'm really excited about tonight's session. I'm really happy to see a bunch of people in the chat already. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm going to toss it over to these guys really quick to do some introductions. We'll do a recap because it has been a while, and then we'll roll right into tonight's session. So thank you again for being here, everybody. Barker, why don't you kick us off here, introduce yourself, and tell us who you are playing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Barker, and I am 1/4 of Absolute Tabletop. And tonight I am playing Holly Rast, a member of an organization dedicated to keeping the peace in Falhast, but an organization that has been corrupted of late. And she longs to turn it back into something worth fighting for.
Awesome. Tim, tell us who you are and who you're playing.
Sure. I am Tim. I am another quarter of Absolute Tabletop. I'm playing Christoph. And real quick, I was going to just do my own hot take recap. Sander has diarrhea. Holly is high as the sun. And Christoph has lost his nose. And nobody knows where Edric is at the moment. And I'm excited to get back into Provokers.
We got ourselves a real dude, where's my car, the hangover situation going on right now with the Provokers. Fantastic. I had forgotten that that Sander had a bowel obstruction, hadn't had a good poop in a while. That was a plot point in the last session. So
yeah,
it's pretty exciting. Yeah. Speaking of Sander having diarrhea, though, Nate, tell us who you are and who you're playing.
Yeah, my name is Nate. I run the YouTube channel WASD20, and I'm playing Sander Denara, who is a halfling monk from the Sonageist Desert and a member of the Order of the Unscorched. Yeah, I think I like to punch things and kick, but I'm genuinely a nice guy, and I have diarrhea.
He's a really nice guy who can beat your ass very easily. Let's jump into a quick recap here. So, the Provokers found themselves in the mountains of Snarholm, where they first encountered the culture of dwarves that dwell in those mountains. Dwarves who revere the heart of the mountain, this fiery heart of the mountain, and use molten rock in their structures and their armor. And they found out that the dwarves of Snarholm are in a centuries-long feud with the rival Duergar, who live on the opposing peak, a place called Svelbrig, a very cold, frozen place, kind of a fire versus ice situation going on. The Provokers were initially there to find the tomb of Eros the Reclaimer, the founder of the convocation, believing that he was buried with a piece of the sphere that Sander carries that could potentially complete the relic and make it even more powerful and capable of closing the bleak rifts than it was before. But when they arrived there, the dwarves of Snarholm informed them that Svelbrig currently controls the tomb of Eros the Reclaimer, but if you go and kick them out, you can do whatever you need to do there in the tomb. So the Provokers headed to this tomb, dubbed the Vault of Aeras. There they encountered some Duergar outside. They did battle. It was a fierce battle. Christoph fell during the battle, but managed to survive, albeit without his nose, which was shorn from his face by an ice blade of the Duergar. The Provokers, though, soldiered on and entered the Vault of Eros, where they found this kind of octagonal room with 5 doors situated at the sort of facets of this octagon. Each room had a symbol atop of it. There was a sun, there was wings, a sword, and then a griffin. And each door sort of corresponded to a different order of the convocation. They completed 2 of these rooms, 2 of these doors, and solved a sort of like puzzle to make a potion. They also fought an air elemental in the sword room, which was another fierce fight. And when we left them, they had just opened the door to the 3rd room in this tomb, wherein they saw 3 statues standing there. One that appeared to be a sort of a tall elven woman, one that appeared to be this sort of fiendish figure, and one that was a little more celestial or angelic looking, with a well, like a well for getting water, sort of situated in between them. And that was where we left the Provokers last time. There was a bit of a mid-credits scene where we saw one of these elves of Haldrathine, this bald woman with her mouth fused shut that we have encountered several times throughout the campaign. This silent one who is typically seen at the side of Praetor Iskandar of Haldrathine. We saw that she too was approaching the Vault of Eros, and we will have to see what becomes of that tonight. So without further ado, let's provoke. We see the frost-shrouded tomb, this Vault of Eros. We see the griffin statue standing at the center, this kind of rearing statue with symbols beneath it corresponding to these doors. 2 of the symbols are alight, while the 3rd, this wing symbol, is still dim. We see the Provokers, the 4 of them, enter this 3rd door. Edric is bringing up the rear, and as Kristoff, Sander, and Holly enter this 3rd room, Edric hesitates. He hears something. There's a crackling, kind of sparking sound emanating from behind him. Edric turns, and there in the center of the room is a glowing orb of violet light that is kind of wreathed with this crackling red energy. Edric opens his mouth to speak, to tell the other Provokers what he sees, but as he opens his mouth to speak, the light expands suddenly and becomes this kind of portal, this rift, this gate. Edric's eyes widen, and through the gate steps a figure. The figure is tall and lean, slender in build. They are draped in these robes that are well worn and tinged with frost at their edges. There's kind of this ice that's kind of creeping up these robes. The figure is leaning on a staff that appears made of this shining, mirrored, almost blue-gray metal. Edric kind of takes a step back as he sees the figure's face, which is shrouded in this same metal. The mask, though, the last time we saw this mask was a mirrored surface, completely devoid of any sort of features, but now it almost appears ursine. There's sort of this bear-like quality to the mask, meant to evoke the river bears of Talmor. Edric makes to speak again, and the figure reaches up, and not touching the mask physically, they pull it away from their face as if it's made of thick liquid. And we see the scarred visage of Dice. Edric, come with me. Edric sort of jerks his thumb over his shoulder. But the others, Dice says, there's no time. Come with me now. Everything will be made clear. Edric, not one to deny the request of a provoker, steps forward. Dice stretches out his hand. Edric takes it. And they walk together through this gate. Dice looks over his shoulder for a moment. And through the doorway, he sees the back of Holly. He puts the mask back on his face with a flourish of his hand. And as Holly is turning, Dice steps into this doorway and it collapses in on itself. And there's a kind of pop. Holly, you hear this pop as you're turning, and you see just the barest, hint of light that was there and is no longer there. What do you do?
She calls out for Edric, and she runs towards where his location was last. And she stands there, crossbow at the ready, kind of scouting around, finding nothing, and looking to the next person that she saw, which would probably be Kristoff.
You said you called out, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I would just be absolutely, just the sound of Holly calling out, I imagine, would startle Kristoff, because so far it's just been this peaceful, serene, we're kind of opening this, gathering the potion, and then all of a sudden it's a shout. So Kristoff would turn and just be like, Ed? And now sort of marching up next to near Holly, looking around. Where did you see him? Where is he? What? Ed? And then Kristoff would sort of start walking around like a parent looking for their kid at the grocery store,
Kristoff would see Holly kind of kick in the door of one of these just walls. It's just like a cavernous wall, right?
Where at? In the room that you're in, or the main chamber?
Where Edric was, and then before he disappeared.
Oh yeah, so that was in the main chamber. So there's the potion room, and then the room where you fought the air elemental, and then this third room that you were sort of entering as Edric seemingly disappeared from behind you.
Okay, yeah, she'd be kind of behaving strangely around the physical objects and environment around her, because she just saw Edric disappear into thin air, and so maybe perhaps into one of these things, whatever surrounds her.
Right.
Sander is, up by Kristoff, saying, "He's not exactly the large or the smallest or most quiet. He must be around here somewhere."
He disappeared into thin air. I promise you.
You saw that? What do you mean? What do you mean he disappeared?
Where?
You're just gonna have to believe me.
Where was it?
Right here, and she would point towards the location where it was. Is there anything interesting or left over from that event in the location where she saw him?
Why don't you give me a Arcana check, if you would, please?
Natural 1.
Oh boy.
You sense nothing here. You do notice that on the ground, sort of where you saw the light kind of collapse and dissipate, the snow beneath that spot is melted. There's a clear spot where the snow has been cleared, almost like someone took a shovel and moved it. It's just there's nothing there.
She would go push her foot around that area, smearing some of the surrounding snow, and say, he was here, and then he was gone.
I take my quarterstaff and I just kind of poke the air kind of around the area, just seeing if there is something invisible?
Maybe you're right. She calls out again.
You call out, Edric! And a voice responds, but not audibly. It is a voice in all of your heads. He's not here. Your friend left. Holly, at least, has heard this voice before. A figure steps through the main doorway leading outside. You see this tall, slender elf with feminine features, these large ears, and a completely shorn, bald head. Her eyes are this striking violet color, and her mouth is fused shut to the point where it doesn't even look like she has a mouth. She is wearing the Mitsurium armor of an elf of Haldrathine. Everyone recognizes her as the elf that accompanied Praetor Iskandar to that fateful dinner with the Order of the Unscorched. And Holly recognizes her as the elf that attacked her and Keenra on the airship in Sonageist. But she brandishes no weapons. She simply stands in the doorway, her purple eyes sort of flitting to the three of you. And she waits for your reaction.
Matt, do you recall if she made herself, I can't remember if when we had dinner with the enemy, if she was present or if she was stalking around like in silence?
So she was at the dinner, but she was not sitting. She was kind of standing back, very, very much with that air of like, I'm here to protect Iskandar and nothing else, sort of. So she did not like participate in the dinner or speak to any of you or any of that.
Absolutely. And so would we recognize her from that, or was that too long ago?
Yeah, no, you and Sander would definitely recognize her because it was the there were only two elves of Haldrathine there, and they were probably the first two elves that you had interacted with from that part of the world. Gotcha. So her features and the way that she's dressed and the way that she carries herself is very, very familiar to you. Yeah.
I would wait. Kristoff would wait to see what the other two would be doing at this point, because he really feels out of his depth in terms of Edric's gone. And this person seems to know where they are, but he understands that if he reacts too rashly, that he might not find Edric, kind of thing.
Sander steps forward and is holding his quarterstaff in a defensive posture and just says, "Don't move any closer. What are you doing here?"
The voice again in your mind. She holds up her hands. I was sent here to bring the three of you back. But I do not intend to do that. I simply want to talk, if you are willing.
Sander glances back at Holly and Kristoff. What do we do?
I was about to ask you the same thing.
Well, I don't want to fight again. We're not in the shape to do it. I hate to say it, and I'm no coward, but I mean, my nose still hurts. Like I don't know if I can make it through another one.
It looks good. And it's healing well. She lies.
There's like cactus, like poultice still stuffed in there. And I kind of like drape down my little grifter mask. Yeah. Like wiggling my face.
Little bit of a wince from Sander. Yeah, it's okay. Well, speak then, Sander says to her. What is your name?
She lowers her hands and says, I'm called Alteria. I am a Solari, a silent one of Haldrathine. For many centuries I have served Praetor Iskandar. But in standing here speaking to you, I am defying him for the first time. I have betrayed Iskandar. And likely guaranteed my own death. But I fear that Iskandar, in his drive to complete what he has set out to do, he has forsaken me, our people, our original vision for Aranoth. He is not the same leader that I swore myself to. He needs you three to complete what he is doing. But I do not intend to bring you to him, as I was ordered to do.
Why does he need us?
We should sit. She looks to you, Kristoff. You look weary.
You look weary.
I imagine that I do. It was a journey getting here. And the Duergar did not take kindly to my arrival.
I mean, I could eat. I could eat.
If you must, yes, of course.
What, do we sit in here? I mean, I don't even know what to do right now. I feel like you're going to kill us. I don't know. But I am hungry and my nose hurts.
She kind of looks around and she sees a bottle laying on the ground from the potion room. She reaches out a hand and it flies through the air towards her. She catches it. And with her other hand, she pulls all the Mitsurium off of herself. There's Mitsurium coming from between the plates of her armor, from her gauntlets. It's flowing from beneath her cloak. And she swirls all of the Mitsurium into the bottle and corks it. She looks to you, Holly, and kind of indicates that she's going to toss it to you and throws it in your direction. I have nothing. No weapons with which to fight.
Except your psychic powers.
tricks, illusions. My mind is not as powerful as my blades.
And I would just look to Sander and Holly like, I mean, I guess. Like, what else?
Yeah, Sander just sits cross-legged on the ground.
I'll stand, thanks.
Very well.
And she just kind of puts her back to a place where she can't be flanked.
And then I think Kristoff would be like, and I am standing in spirit with you. And I'm just going to take a knee, though, for a minute and catch my breath. But I'm standing in here. And Kristoff kneels. So you have Holly standing, Kristoff taking a knee, and Sander sitting, I imagine, like cross-legged, like very, monkish, sort of like you just fold into this neat little lotus.
Exactly. Yeah.
Alteria comes and she also sits kind of cross-legged on the ground. And she reaches into her cloak and pulls out this kind of cylindrical sort of object. She shows it to you, Sander, and she goes, for warmth. And she pops the top on it, and there's this kind of flash, and she sets it down on the ground, and it creates this kind of cylinder that is just like glowing like white hot, and it puts out a good amount of light, and you feel like warmth for the first time in like several hours, and it's really, really nice. And she kind of like leans back, lets the three of you warm up a little bit. After a couple of minutes of kind of awkward, uncomfortable silence, she says, the three of you, the four of you, have something in common that many in Aeronoth do not. You have traveled through the bleak and lived to emerge from the other side. I can count on two hands the number of people who have done that. She looks to you, Holly. Your adoptive father was one. Is one.
He's alive?
He is. There are others who have ventured into the bleak. But you three, well, he sent me to get you. He will likely send others for the others. There's a word he's been using to describe people like you, conduits. Iskandar has been searching for conduits, a way to stabilize his devices. These machines he's building on top of the bleak rifts. Unstable, dangerous. We've lost many in our efforts. He thought for a time that the sphere, she nods towards you, Sander, would be a sufficient conduit. A few months ago, he uncovered something in Sonegeist, a corpse, the remains of the Corruptor, I believe you call him. The Corruptor, too, was a conduit, somebody who had been touched by the bleak and had lived. These remains have served as a conduit for a time, but the power there is weak, dwindling. he believes that a living conduit is necessary for these machines.
So wait, so are y'all trying to make a lich? Because that's how you make a lich. You put a corpse that was in the bleak into a machine that's powered by the bleak. Oh my God. Bleak lich. I'm calling it now.
I did not approve of this. There is another working with Iskandar, a devil of sorts. Bronze Eyes, he is called. He has given Iskandar some ideas that I find reprehensible.
We know of Bronze Eyes, only a bit, but we know of Bronze Eyes.
Yes, I believe you, she nods towards Holly, have felt the sting of this creature.
She feels a flash of pain. She's there for a moment, and then she's back. She can't hide it on her face. You see that.
There's a voice that kind of tickles the back of your mind, Holly, and you're not sure if it's coming from this silent one, but you hear, "The pain will never go away," like a whisper.
Does she get the notion that it's a voice that only she can hear inside her mind?
You don't see Kristoff or Sander react to it, so you imagine
Okay.
that it was just for you.
It's like very Frodo and Galadriel kind of in the moment where they get to Lorien. Yep. Okay.
Yep. One who has seen me high. Yeah.
So I guess people who are insightful or no, perceptive, or maybe either, would notice that Holly gives Alteria a strange, fearful, almost threatening and threatened simultaneously look.
Alteria continues speaking, sort of unfazed by that look, almost ignoring that expression on your face, Holly. Utilizing the corpse of the corruptor as a conduit for these machines was not the first misstep Iskandar has made. But it is when I began to doubt his intentions, his leadership. I now believe the cost of what he is trying to achieve is too high. I want to help. I am owed no patience or favors. I have hurt you. She looks at Holly. I have hurt your loved ones. I do not do this to make amends or reparate myself, but simply to do what I know to be right now. And I only hope that it is not too late.
I am not so prideful as to turn down help. I'm not sure about my friends.
I learned in my time in the clerisy that there's a difference between someone who's neutral and someone who's an ally. Neutral parties can become enemies very quickly. Are you neutral? or are you an ally?
I believe that is for you to decide. If I am to be an ally, then I will be an ally. And I do not boast when I say I could be a powerful ally. Your friend here, again, she nods towards Holly, can attest to that.
Well, then I'll leave it up to her, because I'm not the one that was attacked. And then I turn, and right in front of her, I say to Holly, Holly, if you feel like you can't leave your back turned to this person, then I'd rather not have an ally. I'd rather have 3 people who are beat up, who I know I can trust, than a powerful one that I don't. I leave it up to you. Go with your gut.
Before you answer.
Oh, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Actually, maybe even as you're answering, Holly, you get flashes in your mind, very sudden and just one after the other. It almost seems like your brain is downloading too much information. It's like going by too fast, but you're experiencing all of it in an instant. You get these flashes of Talmor, a swamp, rain. You see Dice, but he's younger. He's fleeing through the swamp. Alteria and Dice, they're fighting. They're fighting each other. They're in a ruin. They're fighting inside the ruin, and Dice is falling through a doorway into the bleak. And as he's falling, you see Alteria's face watching him fall through the bleak with shock on her face. And then the scenes end, and Alteria is looking at you, and you know for certain, Holly, that she has shared this with you willingly as sort of a, before you answer, know what I did.
At first, she's surprised, and it puts her on her heels. But then she gets control over her stomach, honestly, for the most part of this vision, that she stands and just faces it and watches it unfold. And then once it's done, in just the flash of an eye, there she is staring at Alteria. And she knows that Alteria can read her mind in a way. There's a connection there. And so she looks Alteria in the eyes, and she thinks really hard about what it would look like to put a crossbow bolt through her sternum in a place that it would take quite a long time for her to die. And she imagines how long that would take, and she has the inspiration around her right now because it would happen right here. And so Alteria gets that vision, that living present memory of her being killed just a mere second from now.
You see her.
You're muted.
I'm muted. You see a flash of acknowledgement on her face. Not fear, but sort of like acceptance. Her basically silently acknowledging that if you wanted her dead, she would be dead. And you would be right in doing so.
Yep. Then she would also know that Holly is a pragmatist and sees what use you can be as an ally, and you feel that as a silver lining. And but that if that conversation about how you can help us should happen now, then you would have to start it.
So Sander and Kristoff, you just sort of, it's not a long time, but it is kind of this It's a good like 5 or 6 seconds that like Alteria and Holly are just like kind of staring at each other, and there's like expressions that happen in both of their faces, and then Alteria kind of tears her eyes away. To start, your friend, the big one, he's in the Bleak.
Is he safe?
I cannot say, but I know that he is with your adoptive father.
Then he's safe.
I trust that you are right. I give that information freely. I can also tell you that what you seek here in the tomb is just beyond that door that lies unopened. The peace of the sphere. I do not know what will happen when you complete that relic, but I know... Well, I know something about it. I know where it comes from. If you wish to know if that would solidify your, if not trust, then tolerance of me, then I will give it freely.
Yeah, that would solidify a lot of things, including my curiosity.
Yes.
The sphere does not have a name because it predates the concept of names. It has popped up many times in history, most notably and most recently with the man whose tomb in which we sit. Aeras used that relic to close the bleak rifts during the Great Scorching and drive the dragons back into the bleak. But it was created eons before then. This sphere is a lock and a key. It is an item created solely for one purpose: to keep a god locked away. In times before humans, before elves even walked upon Aranoth, there were two great empires, the dwarves and the trolls. Their wars would eventually shape the Aranoth we know today. But in the time when they both reigned, they encountered a being, a god would be the closest word to describe what they are, but it is not quite right either. She's gone by many names. The Chained God, the Pale-Faced God, Empress of Dragons, Queen of Worms. Oftentimes she's just called the Nameless. She was locked away by an ancient alliance of trolls and dwarves, and together they created that, shaped by dwarven lithomancers, enchanted by troll shamans. It contains the magic that shaped Aranoth, the magic that continues to create life, raw primal magic. That sphere. That sphere is what is holding her back. She has been locked away for untold millennia. And a few decades ago, she almost got in. The corruptor, he served her. Or rather, he allowed her to possess him. Give him power to work her will. That sphere. That's all we have.
I feel like it's about time for me to crack a joke, but that's terrifying.
The four of you, the blades you carry, the fragments of the sword the corruptor wielded, you have likely felt the power within those shards.
Yes.
That weapon once belonged to her as well.
Sander's mind is just going to all the times he's held this orb, sphere, and picturing what she's telling us. Sander just feels kind of almost nauseous at how little he understood it. It's dizzying to him. His head is swimming with kind of this sense of foreboding of how important this thing is and how little he thought of it.
And I think Kristoff would probably realize in that moment that this is when Edric would be the most useful. And, you know, he would say something like, I mean, I guess if Edric is going to miss this epic Provokers reboot of us, the only thing to miss it for is to be with an actual original Provoker. I hope he's okay. I'm sure he is, but man, I wish I paid attention when he was rambling about all that stuff. I feel like I know just enough to be dangerous.
Do you want to make a roll to see how much we remember from the original stories and then just like butcher them back and forth?
I would adore that. I
Is that
think
Arcana?
I would say, wait, how do you play D&D? Is there a history skill in D&D?
I'm going to use rope.
I'm gonna roll.
Yeah,
there is a history.
There is. No,
okay.
there's
history would be the roll then.
All right.
Oh my God.
I actually don't have terrible history because of the druidic. Like I took it because I thought my parents would make me learn all that.
Right.
Holly smiles. She steals a smile because the thought of him out there with dice and just how much he would love that is amazing. But she says, what other Provokers would he be with? Maybe what's the one dwarf that split into two dwarves to fight together back to back? There's like it's a battle.
Bergen and Glasswick.
Yeah, I guess, you nerd. I don't remember their names. I just remember that they got just messed up by a dragon.
Yeah. And then, what was he always talking about? Oh, he would say like, "Oh, no, I'm a wizard," and he'd say something like, "Frosties for hamburgers." What would he say? It was a battle
It was
cry. It
Frosties
was like
for hamburgers.
Frosties for hamburgers.
It was Frosties for hamburgers.
Icicles for beef shanks.
Dinosaur lasagna. No, spaghetti. What was it?
Yeah, and then there was the one we met. Oh, what was his name? There was the guy we met. He saved us. He helped us get away from that Mitsurium monstrosity.
Aeras.
Some elf guy.
Yeah. What was his name?
She kind of haunts over for a moment because she remembers Arundel catching her before she was leaving with the prized possession. And I said, Arundel, is that was his name, right? Oh no.
It was Aragorn.
Aragorn. It was Aragorn. No, but she kind of clams up because she gets nervous. Just in that moment. But she feels a trust in Alteria that she hasn't felt before. And Alteria will get a glimpse of this as they're joking, that she even understands now with all of this mystic nonsense. Sometimes it feels like she understands that the way time works, that Edric is where he needs to be right now, and they'll meet again. She knows he's safe.
And I think Kristoff would kind of see this look. It was a story in 3 parts on your face, and we've been around each other long enough for me to see when the stoic face turns into a real emotion that can't be veiled, and then it turning into another emotion, and then it screwing back up into that sort of stoic face. And I just sort of, in seeing that, can't help. I just say, I make fun of him because I'm a little jealous of it, really. In a weird way. I don't know. I feel like he's part of something and he knows so much. And I feel like I don't. And it happened around me. And it's happening again. And I feel like I've lived in a bubble and Edric hasn't. And I'm like twice his age, I think. I don't know. He could be 30. Who knows? Anyway.
You'd be honored to be remembered half as much as Edric remembers the Provokers.
There it is.
Are our blades dangerous then? Should we be rid of them?
I do not think so. Iskandar was not interested in them as objects of power. I think that when the blade was broken, her influence over it waned and then disappeared. I can say that I know that you carried those blades when we first met at the Tower of the Unscorched. And I can say that if the corruption was still there, the 3 of you would not be as you are today. She would have worked her will.
That makes sense. I've used it and I haven't felt any. I feel like I would feel something. So, through those doors then. But we talked a lot about food a little while ago. Right?
You know, like when you're hungry, but you're in a hurry and you only have like a small ration of something, and it's the least, it's the thing you want the least. It's the thing that will hit that hungry spot the least. Holly just tosses something to you and it hits you in the chest.
It's the aeronaut equivalent of one of those just raining down oats Nature Valley bars. And you know that it's going to be harder than you want, and it's going to just be everywhere, and it'll fill your stomach, but you don't want that. You want something warm and soft.
Yep.
And so you You toss me like maybe it's literally some sort of like granola that we've gotten, along the way. And I'm just like, oh, granola, like owlbear raisins.
It just shatters in your teeth. Like, and
Yeah. Oh,
Sander, you get one too. I don't know how Sander would enjoy one.
Yeah, I would totally accept it. I'm used to very simple food. Thank you. Yes, we should eat, gather our strength before we enter.
Alteria actually kind of stands up and brushes the frost off of her clothes, and she says, allow me to hunt something for you. Something substantial. It will give the three of you a chance to rest and speak without my... She kind of like sighs a little bit and says, I know that I am an unnerving presence, but I can assure you that I can only detect your thoughts out to a range of about 40 feet.
That would be great. We would appreciate it very much.
Very well. I shall return. She kind of like looks around, and there's these Duergar corpses still kind of laying in the room, and she kicks up one of their spears and catches it and like nods, and then will leave out the front doors carrying the spear, leaving her Mitsurium with you, Holly.
Oh, wow. So she went, okay. And it's funny because she leaves and there's a beat. And I look at Holly and I go, I thought for half a second she was going to try to feed us one of those. Let me go and hunt you something. Here, I made this.
She just dumps the Duergar like armor and everything like onto the fire. That's what you people eat, right?
Let's not get our hopes up. She might be coming back with a fresher one. They are substantial.
I think that Hollywood mentioned wishing having some jerky, and there's another timeline in which Edric is there, and he makes a comment about a Provoker story involving jerky and a bargain for jerky. But alas, we're here, and so those sounds reverberate off the walls, and Holly offers. She goes over to where the Silent One is going to be staying, and places a piece of the granola anyway, just to show that she's welcome.
Sander turns to his companions and says, all my life, my people have studied the past, observed, preserved. And it is now very clear that it is more a part of our present than I imagined. We are weaving ourselves into it, or the past is weaving itself into us, or it's always been a part of us. But, Holly, how are you? Hearing this news of your adoptive father.
She's kind of glazed over just a bit, clearly looking for any other conversation. But she seemed genuinely happy when Edric's name comes up, that he's safe somewhere, probably even safer than we're all here. But she says, Sander, I hate the past. Just what is the point of studying the past? Things change. It's the here and now. Or maybe we're saying the same thing, but I don't know. Tell me one thing that you can find in any history book that is actually useful now?
I'm not saying it's useful. I'm saying it's who we are. We can't escape it.
She doesn't like that. Very in character for Holly, very out of character for me.
Well, should we get some rest? Or how long do you think she'll be?
Holly couldn't sleep a wink, so she offers to stay up. Go ahead and get your rest. If you wake up, we'll work something out, but I'll stay up.
Sander would probably try to find some kind of corner that's a little more shelter and curl up in a cloak or something. Back against the wall, not laying down per se, but
What about Kristoff? Are you going to get some rest?
I think I would absolutely. And as soon as I kind of see that there's an opportunity for it to not feel like it's out of place, like the moment that there's a break and it feels like there's a lull enough for me to rest, I would try to do my best to get some sleep even. Like just find somewhere around there that, because I feel that I've spent enough time in the wilderness to be able to find at least, or at least I know and have been taught by my parents and those around me how to make a proper bed and how, whatever. And so I think I'd probably even maybe use a little bit of druidic sauce, little druidic magic to kind of make some sleeping hay or something like that, and then just kind of crash out and try to get some rest.
Cool. Okay, so you both die of exposure. No, I'm just kidding. You both get some good rest. Holly, it probably about an hour goes by. Kristoff and Sander eventually kind of drift off to sleep. Probably, pretty restless sleep. There's some warmth that is generated by the tinder twig that she brought with her. But it's so cold in here, and there's the wind keeps kind of like rushing through the doors and swirling around the place, disturbing all of the frost and dirt on the ground, fluttering the flame of the tinder twig as it does so. But after about an hour, she returns, and on the end of this spear, she has three large. They almost look like marmots. They're like large rodents, but they have like snow white fur. And she has three of them kind of impaled on the end of this spear that she comes in. And she brings it over to the tinder twig and kind of drops him down. And again, she kind of like rummages around in the Duergar corpses and finds this ice bladed knife. And she begins cleaning and gutting these little animals. Silently as she does so, but as she enters back in, Holly, you get that same sort of strange tickle in your mind. Just her very presence there kind of creates that kind of raw nerve in your brain.
She sees her dad fall from this, like fall through into an eternity, and sees in a flash her being the one to have done it to him. And she sees her now. and she moves closer, kneels beside her, pulls out a hatchet, a sharpened hatchet, and helps her clean them. And does a god awful job of it. Just this is not an animal that she's ever cleaned. She may have, it's nothing like this. She knows she's embarrassed by it, and the silent one will understand that or feel that.
Yeah, it's like it's like when you're cleaning a fish and like half the meat comes off with the skin, and you're just like, oh my god, like, and there's no words exchanged, but she kind of like reaches out a hand and like indicates like, I can help. I can show you.
And then they continue in that way, I think, until...
It's strange to sit and be in the presence of someone who cannot speak, but who can take up space in your brain, and speak directly into your mind and create thoughts and images in your mind. But you don't feel any sort of probing presence, and she does not put any words or images in your mind, Holly. She is entirely deathly silent, the only sound being the wind, the restless shifting and snoring of Sander and Kristoff, and the kind of this blade cleaning these animals. Eventually, she puts the creatures over a spit and sort of just lets them roast over the fire, and she kind of sits back and just like watches them cook. You almost get the sense that she has entered some sort of like meditative trance, because her eyes kind of like glaze over and she's just sitting there completely motionless. It's, for a second you're like, is she alive? Because you don't see her breathing, and then you just see the slightest little like, these like short little breaths.
I imagine that noseless Kristoff would probably have a strange whistle. Right? Like what was once snoring is now like...
It's like what we do in the shadows when he swallows the harmonica, just a little bit.
Oh, gosh.
That might be the funniest episode of that show.
I can't believe it happened in the Provokers.
Oh.
Eventually, Sander and Kristoff, you would likely wake up and smell meat cooking. It smells really good. And you see Holly and the Silent One kind of sitting around this fire, occasionally like rotating this just stick with these little rodents cooking on it.
Yeah, Sander moves a little closer and you know, kind of puts his hands out to warm his hands, and just kind of nods at Holly.
When you come to sit at the fire, Alteria slides one of these marmots off the spit, and she puts it on like a flat piece of rock and just kind of slides it over to you, Sander, and it's like steaming off of this rock. Juice is dripping off of it.
Yeah, and Sander pulls out just a little bottle of like a clearish liquid, sprinkles it on there onto the meat, and starts to enjoy it.
I love the idea that Sander carries a little bottle of like hot sauce with him at all times, because he would be that type of person who just like gets it out and shakes it up and like adds it to like whatever he's eating. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. It's just
like a
some kind of
lunchbox.
desert chili pepper,
Yes. Yeah.
you know, sauce that's just too hot for most to handle.
Yeah, I love that.
This is good. Thank you, he says to, is it Iscaria or what's her name?
Alteria.
Alteria.
Here, I'll put it in the chatty chat.
I'll tell you how Christoph remembers it. Alteria motives.
I'll tear your heart out.
I'll tear your heart out. By the way, I think that Sander somewhere down the line has got a bottle of that hot sauce, and it's going to be called the Great Scorching.
Oh man.
Yeah. Sander is playing with fire right now because he just drank that that laxative that you guys made in the potion room.
Yeah.
And now he's eating hot sauce with a rodent that he's never had before.
I will no longer be unscorched.
Unscorched in name only.
If we're kind of hanging out and having a side conversation, Holly's been thinking for a while about the goings on in Falhast, and she thinks that the guilds are corrupted, specifically the part of the guild's finances that comes from Gavalt, people from Gavalt, the taxes that they pay in reparations. There's been thought among her very inner circle that some people might be skimming off the top and using it in an illegal relics trade, both relics of Gavalt, but also relics from the north and relics from a place like where Sander is from. And I think that there's a famous heist or stolen relic, or maybe something was transferred from Sonageist or from that region to Falhast so people could look at it, but maybe it was stolen. And she thinks that her father might have something to do with it. Her biological father, Deacon Rast, the kind of a prominent guild member in Falhast. And so she's going to just mention it, briefly bring it up to Sander while they're eating. Did you ever see the and what is it? What would it be called? Do you want to make it up, Matt? Like this relic, this thing that was stolen.
Let's say that it is here. You know what? I'm going to use my GM's dressing dice with illustrations on them by our very own Alexander Kostic.
Super smart.
What?
Look like this.
Yeah, they're cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's an item that is it's a ring, and hey, everybody's got them.
They're dope.
Except for Barker.
I think I backed it too. I must not have filled out my
Did you
survey.
fill out your survey, Barker? Are you that guy? You're that guy that we have to deal with now. Did you fill out your survey?
No.
Did you fill out your survey? Where's my book? Did you
survey?
fill out your survey,
Survey.
dude?
Send him a scathing message without checking.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no.
I'm kidding.
Okay, yeah.
That's what gets results. So it's a ring that is like this black ring that is sort of shot with these like almost like star-like diamond sort of growths within it, so it almost looks like this night sky. And I'll say that it's called the Band of Night.
She remembers seeing the Band of Night as it was moving past a checkpoint, a corrupted one, and she remembers just hearing about its disappearance later. She brings it up to you, Sander. She says, "Did you ever get to see the Band of Night before it was taken? Or before its disappearance?"
Yes. Yes, I did.
The silence kind of hovers for a moment. Sander and Holly met in a way because an item was being smuggled through Falhast, and she sees how a lot of Falhast's history is questionable, and she's been thinking a lot about ways to make it better. And she says, "I hope they find it."
Me
and then
too.
she eats.
Tragedy.
The voice of Alteria suddenly sounds out in your mind. One of my first missions for Praetor Iskandar was to reclaim some elvish relics from Talmor. They had a penchant for taking things that did not belong to them. It was my first time on the mainland. I had grown up on the island of Haldrathine and had no idea what to expect. The rain, the constant rain. Talmor is such a rainy, muddy place, but there's a kind of beauty to it as well. And there are times during the day when the sun will break through the clouds and shine upon the fields. And there's so much rain in the air that it creates all of these little rainbows. Almost like each raindrop is a little crystal just refracting and reflecting the light. It's a beautiful place, Talmor. I went one time after that as well.
It's disgusting. It's muddy. It's sopping wet. It sucks. And I love it. And I would go back there at any moment if given the opportunity.
Are you describing Talmor or the Puget Sound right now? It's muddy, it's disgusting, it's rainy, and I love it.
You walk through fog and you a quarter mile later you're soaking wet and it's not even raining, it's just fog. And then the wind comes and freezes you. And sometimes you're the freeze, sometimes you're the meat, you know?
Sometimes you're the freeze, sometimes you're the meat. I don't know how you take a catchphrase and somehow make it even more catchphrasey, but you did. You did it, Parker.
Yeah, you did. Oh, that was beautiful.
That was an extended release joke a little bit. That was nice watching you two. Oh my God. Getting you got me. I'm going to watch that again.
And Christoph, you sort of wake up to that voice in your head.
Like an alarm.
Just the worst alarm clock you've ever heard. Sort of in a panic, and then you smell roasting meat and look over and see the marmot sort of over the fire.
I think, at least lightly canonically, I think Alteria sounds like Alexa in my head.
10-minute timer starting now.
Good morning,
I'm having
Christoph.
trouble understanding right now.
Yeah. Can you say that again? Where's Edric? And so anyway, so Alteria sounds like Alexa in my head, but no.
Here's what I found about the sphere.
sphere is a round object, geometrical in shape, such as the sun or a basketball. No, I want to know the sphere like from history. The Sphere Mystery is a movie by J.J. Abrams.
Would you like to learn more about that?
From the fire, a package of meat for Christoph has arrived.
This is a reminder. Clean your nose. This is a reminder. Your nose is gone. Oh man.
So when you wake up, Christoph, is it kind of like is it really quick, like a like kind of blowing the top of a bottle?
It's like that's exactly what it's like. No, I think that Christoph would feel the soreness. I mean, I slept, but we still got whooped like bad. And so the adrenaline is gone. The surprise of meeting Alteria is gone. The hunger that was masking the pain was gone. And so now, fully rested, I can feel every scrape and ache and bruise. I feel better, but I'm certainly feeling parts that are tender. My nose hurts everywhere. And so the meat, the smell of that meat would just be so welcome, because it would probably be the only thing that was positive at the moment. Sleeping on the wrong side in this place, just, but smelling what would be a breakfast you would get at a tavern, at like the Wayward Wanderer, like, is like, oh, it's sort of, collect myself and then head over to where everyone else was kind of eating breakfast. And it looks like, at least to Christoph, it looks like Holly and Sander have been up like an adult versus a teenager on a Saturday. Like they look all sort of like put together. They're finishing. Holly's like doing dishes. And I'm like, is there any cereal left?
We've been playing win back on the N64 all night. And yep. Welcome. And Holly hands you some of the meat.
Thank you so much. And I think Christoph would sort of start digging in and oh yeah. And so I think Christoph would be quiet for a little while he's just sort of eating more than his fill.
And while the three of you are eating, Alteria kind of gets up and just sort of is wandering around. You all note that she's not eating, obviously, and brought no food for herself. And she's just kind of wandering around, like looking around, sort of taking stock. She kicks over one of the like frozen corpses of one of these Duergar and kind of is searching through. She pulls out a few more like weapons and kind of like stockpiles them near the statue, just like kind of keeping herself busy, not wanting to sit idle as the three of you are eating.
She's pretty magical, right? She can maybe do some pretty arcane things.
Potentially. You've seen her, obviously she can control Mitsurium really well, and you've seen her pull stuff towards her very easily. She also threw you around like a dinosaur lasagna on your fight in the airship. She was like hurling you around and like throwing barrels at you and shit, like Darth Vader style. Yeah.
Dooku.
Yeah.
So and Christoph, your nose is just kind of like the cleaned off. It's just clean off like the socket, right?
Yeah, and we kind of had this cool thing where essentially in between like eating and stuff, I had this sort of like face mask thing that I've been rocking. Probably looks really gross now because the cool red blood is now like brown, dirty person blood. And so it's like, but I have it down to eat for sure. Cool. But I don't think that Christoph's quite used to feeling like everyone isn't staring directly into his nose.
Right. I maybe this is actually completely up to you, Tim, but I feel like, you know, Durgan with the beard being repaired back blue. There's a fix the nose, mend the nose sort of rhyme in history happening here. It's totally up to you, and that is a really cool facial covering. So yeah, either way, Holly's enjoying the meat.
Yeah, and I have some ideas about that I haven't even, like, when the opportunity arises, I think I was going to try something with it. So that edges me in that direction, because I was like, shouldn't I or shouldn't I? But I think I have an idea, and so that confirms it.
As the three of you sort of wrap up your meal, Alteria standing there, she's holding a couple of daggers, sort of testing their weight, and she says, I am not sure what we will find beyond those doors. I know that Eros the Reclaimer is buried there, but this tomb has tested you greatly thus far. I can only imagine there is a final test beyond.
Will we have you with us?
If you will have me.
She glances over at Kristoff, Sander, still stuffing their faces. We'll have you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you ain't getting out of this one.
No, in fact, you are going first.
Ooh, good call. This is really delicious, by the way.
She hesitates for a second and then nods to you, Sander, and says, very well. I am ready when you are.
I think Kristoff would sort of like eat a little more, because he's obviously at his fill. This is like now thinking ahead that he doesn't know when the next one's coming. You know,
as you once famously said, Tim, it's Hanna-Barbera's great race to your Duat. Eating more before you realize you're full.
That is exactly right. And so he's just like, and he kind of looks down and he looks at everyone else who's clearly ready, and he was the late riser. Sort of like folds it up and like sticks it in a bag, like in his sack somehow. He's like, all right, I'm ready. Yep, let's not think too much about how Edric isn't here.
And with that, I think we'll take a quick break. So please stick around, everyone. We will be right back, and we'll see the conclusion of not only this session, but also the Vault of Aeras 3-parter here on the Provokers. So stick around. We will be right back.
That's what you think.
Yeah, so there's going to be a part 4.
5.
We're going to force you to
6.
cliffhanger it.
6. In Aeras, you get some dirty spaghetti. And in Ankea, you get some dinosaur lasagna. And then in Gloam, hither comes some cursed Peniella vodka. And then in Dragon Green, you get dismembered garlic knots. It's the cookbook of the realms part 2. It's the cookbook of the realms part 2. It's been said many times, many ways. Merry Cookbook Part 2. Fine Cookbook of the Realms Part 1 on Good Morning America. and at Clegane Bowl 2 or on Absolute Tabletop. I really have to go to the bathroom.
All right, everyone, we're back. Thanks for sticking around with us, for tuning in this evening. Let's continue the session. So, Alteria, holding these two daggers, walks up to that final door, and kind of looks back to the three of you to see, like, should I open it?
Yeah, and I think I would probably ready my dagger, the magical one, just kind of standing ready. Who knows, what's behind there.
She, with one hand, pushes on the door, and like all of the other doors in here, it kind of like pushes forward and then slides into this recess in the wall with this rumble. And there's like dust that kind of filters down from the roof as this door that has not been opened in likely many, many years opens. And it is completely dark beyond the threshold. And she sort of like flips these daggers around, so she's carrying a reverse grip in front of her, and she kind of slowly walks into the door, and you actually see her kind of disappear into this like darkness beyond the threshold.
As long as I don't hear anything frightening, I would certainly follow.
What about Holly or Kristoff?
Holly would take up the rear and just kind of be, as we enter, looking around the ceiling and behind the group. And if there's not a light source, she would recommend someone light a torch.
Yeah, and with I think Kristoff would look to her for that instruction of like, do you want me to go in? And then that non-verbal shorthand that they've developed, I think I would immediately know that you want to take up the rear. And then in terms of a light, I do have the ability to do that, but I think I would kind of wait and see just a second, because I also don't know if the light would affect Alteria. Like, I don't know. Like, if that
Sure.
like flashbangs her or something, So I'd kind of like hold it up to you, like, and then I would just wait.
As you're standing there, a light kind of appears in the distance. Just this like glimmer, this hint of daylight at the end of like a long tunnel.
I would probably, can I see if there are any things being shown in that light, or does it just look like a light in a darkness? Is there any appendages, anything?
Give me a perception check.
Sure thing. Okay, that's not looking great. Just from the outset, we're talking here. Let's go. 7.
You don't notice anything specific, but you can see that there is like movement in the light. Like there are things moving within this light, and you actually get the sense that there's like a flickering light as well, almost like there are flames as well. But that's all you can tell from this distance.
I think that would probably make me more wary. And I would probably just kind of stay back and wait to see how things unfold and what the others would do in light of this.
What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Holly's trying to communicate, but she doesn't know what she's doing.
All of you hear a voice in your minds. There's something up ahead. I hear clashing steel, battle. Should I proceed or wait?
I think we should move forward. Slowly.
Agreed.
Stick together. Stick together.
The three of you move forward, and eventually you kind of almost bump into Alteria. She's, maybe 10 or 15 feet in front of you. And you move slowly down this tunnel, and the light at the end of this tunnel slowly grows bigger and bigger. All of you get the sense now of these shapes kind of moving back and forth, flames flickering. There are flashes of light. And all of you, after you get, about halfway down this tunnel, start to hear the sounds of battle. There's like a clamor. There's a great thunder. There are shouts and cries, and you hear clashing steel, armor against armor. There are thunderous booms, almost like these explosions going off. And above all of it, there are these high screeching roars in the distance as you grow closer and closer to this doorway.
Do you have any idea what it is?
You see Alteria kind of she almost drops into a crouch and is kind of peering very intently at the end of the corridor, and you see this kind of flash across her eyes. Magic. Illusion. I think it is an illusion. But it's hard to tell. There's a lot of magic at play. I can't separate the auras from each other.
I think everyone would receive a collective feeling as Holly feels, okay, let's move in. If this is an illusion, let's put it to the test. And so whether everyone can obviously disagree, but you all feel Holly's resolute desire to walk through the end of the tunnel, the corridor.
Yeah, and in those moments before that happened, I think the only thing that Kristoff could hear was his own heart inside his own head, and feeling it in his jaw, that and then I hear Holly sort of break that, let's go, come on, we need to move forward. I sort of swallow. My heartbeat gets quieter, and then I just start walking forward, because it's very dark, so it's hard for me to tell who's in front, who's still in the rear, who's the flank. So I just sort of start walking forward like someone in a dark room, with one hand extended and then the other with my dagger at the ready.
You kind of reach the end of this corridor, and as you do so, the light that is spilling in kind of illuminates the floor and the walls around you, and you see this mortared stone. It looks different than the tomb that you were just in, and you realize that you're kind of you're emerging out of a fortress of sorts. The light is blinding at first, this very harsh, white blue daylight of light reflecting off of snow. It is cold and frigid here as you emerge out of this tunnel and see before you a great battle, a battle of thousands on both sides. You are emerging from a fortress that is manned by humans and elves and dwarves. There are halflings, there are orcs, all of them fighting shoulder to shoulder, firing arrows into the melee, throwing spears, and you see the opposing army, draconic. There are kobolds and dragonborn riding on drakes, and overhead you see dragons wheeling in the sky doing battle with griffins. And as you emerge, just taking all of this in, it's just overwhelming. You hear someone off to your left say, "Watch out, watch out!" And a ball of flame just into the wall and explodes stone outwards. I would like everyone to please make a dexterity saving throw. We'll do one for Alteria. Whew, she got 19.
I need to set my dice tower back up. I moved it for something that I was working on, and now I'm just rolling on the table, and it is bad.
Okay. So all of you are kind of thrown from the wall and land in the snow below painfully. Not dealing any damage, but you just kind of land painfully in the snow, and rocks kind of rain down around you, and a few kind of plink off of your armor and maybe even bounce off your heads as you're laying there. There's this intense ringing in your ears. Holly, though, you managed to kind of avoid this blast that came down, this catapult shot that came down. Why don't you describe what that looks like as you sort of deftly avoid that explosion that goes off?
It starts with the sound that it was making. And for a moment, she was back in Falhast, a young girl, and there was a catapult, a piece of rubble flying into not that tech level, flying into the city, and just past her ears. And she jumped out of the way before realizing that was what she was deciding to do. And even still, the pressure from the ammunition, the catapult ammo smashing into the wall, it makes her legs feel like shattering glass in the moment, and she's thrust backward. She lands, it doesn't look like she lands deftly, but she just doesn't take any damage. She slides backward and then finishes with a roll and kind of struggles to get to her feet, but then she does, and she looks around to see how everyone else turned out.
Yeah, you see Sander and Kristoff are both prone on the ground, recovering from the shock of it. Alteria lands beside you, sort of in a superhero, like she lands on her knee and like fist on the ground, and she looks up, just looking around, and kind of like looks to you, Holly, and you hear in your mind, "This illusion can hurt us. We must tread lightly."
She looks around. Is there any semblance? Can they tell what fortress they're defending or attacking, or who the enemy is, or whether or not this infinite room has another exit, or what purpose they can serve here? Any clues?
Let's do either. Well, actually, since this is a skill challenge, I will let you decide what skill you want to roll here, and each of you can do this. You could do perception to basically just try and look around and like pinpoint anything of importance. You could do history to try and basically be like, okay, here's this fortress, here's this guy, like which battle are we in right now? Arcana to try and understand what the illusion is doing. Basically, you pick a skill and you tell me how you're going to use it. You cannot use a skill twice in the skill challenge, so any skill that you use right now is not going to be available to use later on in the skill challenge, if that makes sense. You guys can go in any order. Let me know.
I think Holly will be unraveled in the mystical nature, taken by the mystical nature of the illusion, and will roll an Arcana check to see where the sun is and how the light is shining, and in what ways she can find flaws.
Cool. And the DC for all of these is 15, so you can just tell me if you succeeded or not. Let me know if you get a nat 20 or nat 1 though.
Okay, fantastic. She's looking around for any sign, any flaw in the illusion, and but she's overwhelmed by it. The sounds of battle, enemies draw close. Maybe some kobolds are breaking through a line, and they're approaching her, and she can't help it. This is real, as real as it gets. The illusion can hurt them. she raises her crossbow and starts firing at these kobolds, whether she hits them or not. But she doesn't see any flaw in the magic.
That was a failure on your Arcana then. Noted.
Sander would like to just maybe, just glance around and see if there's anything of importance, anything that, if this is an illusion, is there a source? So I would like to roll perception if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
That is a 15.
Hey, nice. Okay. So, Sander, your ears are ringing, and that might even give you a little bit of an advantage here. Because you aren't overwhelmed by all of the shit that's going on, you're able to just kind of look around and take solace in the horrible tinnitus that is happening in your ears. You see, as I said, the two sides kind of warring with one another. But you notice now that the fortress behind you kind of extends outward and becomes this massive bridge. And you realize, I've seen this bridge before. This is the bridge that we saw when we were approaching Snarholm. This is the bridge that spans these two peaks. This battle happened here. And you know that at the end of this bridge, that tomb where Aeras was buried, that's at the end of this bridge.
So is the illusion all-encompassing, or does it fade out in places? Can we kind of see it reality, or is it just we're in the illusion?
You're fully in the illusion because you're like up in the mountains and it's snowing. There's like clouds just everywhere. Like there's clouds below you, there's clouds above you, there's clouds around you, and so it's almost like a video game cheating draw distance. Like you can't quite see past the illusion. You imagine that at some point the illusion has to end, but I can't see where it does.
Sure. So would it be possible then to try to use, since we are outside, right? This is a mountain. We are in nature, right?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, you're outside, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'd like to try to do, if I can, is use survival to essentially tell the difference between what is the actual ground saying to my feet. I might even close my eyes.
Yeah.
And kind of just like try to like feel what I'm really feeling and let the cold wind, kind of connect with nature in a way that is outside of what is illusory.
Yeah. Give me a survival roll. That's great.
All right. Oh, baby. Beautiful bean footage. Finally. I don't know if you heard of the dice tower.
That was very satisfying. Yes.
So let's see.
A 4.
4 all up. It's a dirty 4.
It's a dirty 4.
It's
so
a
like
19.
3 on the die, -1 on my skill. So, what did you? Sorry, Tim. What did you say?
No. Yeah, it's a 19 all up.
19. Okay, cool, great. Yeah, you take a moment, Christoph, and like I said with Sander, the ringing in your ears almost aids you in this because you're able to just take a breath and you feel the ground beneath you, and it is solid. And not only can you feel the ground beneath you, but you feel the mountain. You feel, we're still in the tomb. This is still the tomb. It's just a really long hallway with like VR, really good VR that we're in right now. Essentially, the illusion is all encompassing, and you imagine that if you could go, 15 feet this way or 15 feet this way, you might bump into a wall. But you are in the mountain, you're in the tomb, you feel the ground beneath you, and you know that your feet are sure.
That's perfect. Yeah, and I would close my eyes as I do it, and sort of breathing in the cold air, letting the surroundings, the nature sort of speak to me. And that's how exactly as you say, I'm like, every time my foot connects with the earth, it's like it like ripples the illusion away in my mind. And it kind of is like that fog of war brushed away. And so yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like stepping in water. Like you can see past the water and see your feet sort of in the water.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very
Yes.
cool. Very, very cool. As the three of you and Alteria get your bearings, this group of kobolds is rushing towards you. All of them are wearing this black plate armor with these spears, and they come charging towards you, sort of growling in this draconic tongue. How do the three of you either avoid or confront this group of kobolds that is charging towards you and barring your path? Any order?
Holly gets tackled. She fires a few shots, and then she gets just brought down by some sort of cleric, like a war cleric on their side, and she gets her hand stuck in this amulet with a symbol on it. Would it be something that's more history or religion related?
Ooh, cool. Excuse me. Let's call it history.
Okay. Oh, okay. 7.
This symbol that you see, you guys are 4 and 4 on successes and misses, by the way. This symbol you see, Holly, is very familiar to you. You know that you know it, but it's just not coming to you, and you can't place it in this context. It's like, yes, I've seen this symbol before, but like in a book or like on a wall. I've like not in the heat of battle with a kobold on top of me trying to stab me. And so, though this iconography is familiar to you, you're not quite sure where to place it. You've definitely seen it before, though.
I think she rips it off from the neck of this character, and then flips them away and begins running. She'll look at whatever Sander and Kristoff are doing, and follow what they're doing. I'm interested in seeing if she'll have that amulet when they get out of here.
That will be interesting. All right, who's up next?
I guess Sander would probably actually, even though he has a feeling that these are not real, I'd like to just use acrobatics to kind of dance around these shapes and make progress really towards the bridge.
Yeah.
And I would probably call out to my companions, head toward the bridge. We need to get across the bridge. And now I will roll acrobatics. And that was not Sander's voice, by the way. What voice was that? Run to the chopper!
It's the
That
voice
was
we
the
all hear in
chopper.
our heads.
Come on, let's go! Come on!
That was Nate Sandersy.
That's right.
Get to the bridge.
That is a pass. I got a 17.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. What does it look like as Sander flips and tumbles through this group of kobolds?
Yeah, I kind of pole vault off of my quarterstaff and just dance around them. Kicking up illusory snow as I do.
Yeah, and I imagine as you're like flipping over them, they're all like stabbing into the air with their spears, and you actually like kind of dance on the tips of the spears very carefully, just like boop, 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 and like land on the other side of them, landing very deftly on the other side of these kobolds. Kristoff, what are you doing?
So I think I would notice the knotted root that's growing up through the bridge. And as they're charging, I think time slows down, and I take and you know what? Time does slow down. It's like super hot. So I take and I sort of like grab.
Guys, if you don't move, time stands still. Just stop moving.
Guys, chill with the necklace and the bow staff. Hold on. But I extend my hand, and these kobolds are charging, and I see Holly like grasping for this necklace, and I see like Sander like hopping over them essentially. And so when I reach out my hand, it's to feel if there are more roots connected to the bridge. and there are, and I pull with my hand, and the roots maybe come out, maybe they don't. Let's see. I'm going to use an Arcana check to see if I can use my spell casting in this moment. Oh, baby, that's a 17 on the die.
Yeah.
So that's a
does it look
21.
like? Yeah.
So I think that I'm able to hack the illusion. So with my own magic, I essentially have these vines that I pull up, and they're acting as nets on the bricks of this bridge. And it doesn't make the bridge collapse, but these bricks are coming out of the bridge, and it totally becomes a wall, this netted sort of like wall that is now floating in front of these kobolds. I've pulled up this tangled vine and stone barrier, and they smash into it. And I close my fist, and it entangles several of them in this now stationary system of roots and rocks, and they're just pinned.
Very cool. As you do that, almost simultaneously, Alteria kind of like vaults over the barrier and lands in the midst of the remaining kobolds. And she throws a dagger, and it like goes right into a kobold's neck. And then she psychically pulls the dagger back into her hands, and then kind of charges forward and just shoulders another kobold sort of off the bridge. And you get like, ah, like down and just disappearing into the clouds. And she just starts sprinting down the bridge, probably sort of like slightly behind Sander. And the four of you continue across this bridge. Griffins are swooping down, and you see these armored, sort of knightly looking figures sort of sweeping down with swords and doing these sort of like strafing runs. You see one of these griffins has one convoker on it that's sort of like steering it, and another convoker that's like it's basically like a two-seater prop plane where there's another convoker sort of back to back with the other one that has a crossbow and is like firing like a turret and loading another quarrelin and firing again. All of these griffins kind of swoop down, but they are not necessarily looking out for anyone that is not a dragon-looking creature, and so all of you have to try and avoid this strafing run of convokers. How do you do it?
I think, can't we just yell, I'm a good guy?
Same team! Friendly
fire,
friendly fire!
There's a moment when the convokers are strafing, and I think that Holly is firing her crossbow and then moving with the silent one, and kind of like in almost an orchestrated run along the bridge. And Holly will reach to grab one of these enemies, these kobolds, and will spin around with this kobold in her arm and hold him up, and so that that he gets hit. And so I assume that's athletics.
That's so dope.
Oh, listen. 6. Failed.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yep, I get hit, or you tell me.
I think it's a glancing blow, but you are struck on maybe your shoulder or sort of your chest by a warhammer of one of these convokers sort of swinging down, and you just hear this, like, you hear it whistling through the air, and the kobold takes the brunt of it, but the warhammer goes clean through the kobold, and you feel it like slam into you, and your breath just like leaves you, Holly. And you are like sprawled out on the ground, just like coughing, trying to catch your breath from this just incredible bludgeoning.
Yeah, there's like pieces of ribs in her armor. Maybe she sees a little illusory magic kind of ripple around them.
Oh man. So then I'm watching this one convoker just swoop in and is dominating. And I'm seeing this pattern. And I've noticed this Convoker probably a couple of times, and they have this really interesting trick where they play this game of left or right. And so they maybe are ambidextrous, but the kobolds will try to feint one way and they'll be able to they're basically kind of playing chicken with them. And so I feel like I've seen it enough in my peripheral vision that like my amygdala identifies this pattern. So it is my instincts. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to use insight to basically determine the true, like, this thing is coming at me and I'm looking right at it. And is it going to feint left or is it going to feint right? And I'm looking. And if I go left, I'm going to jump into the hammer if it goes left. And if I go right, I'm going to jump into the hammer if it goes right. So I'm going to try an insight check to see, like, call the bluff, which side.
Perfect.
Nice.
Very cool.
Playing Convoker chicken.
Convoker chicken, baby. Extra tasty, crispy. Okay, let me see.
Bean footage?
Bean footage? Well, let's see. We'll see.
Question mark?
Oh, I missed by 1. I got a 14. You said the DC was 15, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I missed it by 1.
So you hesitate just like half a second, Christoph. You're
Yeah.
like, I think it's like, no, it's right. And you go and you feel this blade just like right through your arm. You feel this, like, you feel the flesh parting, you feel blood flowing, and you feel this like immense sharp pain of this, just the very tip of this blade, just like slicing through your armor and into the meat of your arm.
Ugh.
What about you, Sander?
I'm thinking that Sander is just going to try to, like, just dash from rock to some deep snow, just plunge in and just basically try to stealth my way across, picking my moments to make a run here and there between cover.
Cool, great.
And that is an 18 on the die for 24.
Woo, another success. All right, what does it look like as you deftly avoid these Convokers?
Yeah, I just, I'm watching the skies carefully, and you'll see Sander just into some deep snow for a moment in his, white robes. Not very comfortable in the snow, but I'm doing it. And just keeping an eye, kind of poking out of the snow, finding those moments and just dashing forward, kicking up the snow, and here and there hiding behind maybe a rock, a body, and playing dead here or there, even perhaps as he just dashes from cover to cover across.
Very cool. Awesome. Alteria is going to try and basically just muscle her way through with athletics. Ooh, nope. That's a 5 on the die. That's her first miss. She actually kind of barrels right into this hulking, like, dragonborn in, like, plate armor. She kind of, like, bashes up against him and stumbles backwards, and he brings up a shield, and he's like, and he, like, swings this mace, and she's, like, locked in combat with this dragonborn now, kind of falling behind as the rest of you are trying to surge forward. As you recover from this strafing attack from the Convokers, you see plummeting from the sky, there are 2 shapes. One is a griffin, this beautiful, like, silver feathered griffin with this almost like feline looking back half, with its wings like tucked up against it, really sleek. And you can see that there's a Convoker on its back with a sword, and this Convoker is plunging this sword again and again into the neck of a dragon with gleaming white scales and these, like, feathered wings that are, like, flapping and trying to right itself. you can hear the shrieks of this dragon, and every time it roars, there's like a gout of like this, almost like a blue flame, but you know that it's just cold because as it comes out, it just like freezes the air around it and creates this like plume of ice and snow. This dragon and this griffin are locked, kind of entangled with one another, and they're just plummeting towards the ground. You see this convoker plunging the sword in again and again. The helmet comes off the convoker, and as they're coming down, you see the dragon finally snakes its neck up and closes its jaws around the convoker. You see the teeth kind of pierce the plate, and you can still see the sword is like lifted up, and the sword is coming again and again down into the dragon's like throat, even as this convoker is being like bitten in half. And the dragon and the griffin finally come down and both just sort of slam into the bridge. And there's this shock wave that comes out as these two beings crash into this bridge. This is the final test. How do the three of you avoid this immense dragon coming down and collapsing onto this bridge?
The hammer is not quite left Holly's chest before she grabs onto the wrist and acrobatically attempts to swing around onto the back of this griffin that this convoker is riding, and the griffin takes off, and then the smashing dueling pair just into the bridge, crash into the bridge, barely missing her. She's going to use acrobatics to attempt to not get killed by doing this, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
17, so that's a success.
Yeah.
She kind of spins her way around and is now behind the convoker that struck her in the stomach. She still can't breathe, but she's gonna, as soon as she can, try to tip him off of this thing. Does the griffin hold her, or is the illusion broken?
The griffin is holding you. It feels solid beneath you and is supporting your weight. So it's a like powerful illusion magic.
I think Sander is just going to leap out of the way, just jump. I mean, this hurtling shapes are coming straight towards him, and he's just going to leap and use athletics.
Great.
That's another 18 on the die, which is 21.
Dope. All right. What does it look like as you avoid this dragon plummeting into the bridge?
Yeah, I imagine I'm kind of jogging along at a a steady pace, and seeing these shapes just plummeting toward the ground. I just kind of find a raised up rock, that's in the epicenter of where they're going to be landing, and just kind of find a rock that's angled in such a way that I can just kind of pounce almost off of this thing and just twirl through the air, diving and just sliding into the snow, barely out of the way.
Yeah, you actually you clear so much distance with that roll that you actually land on the other side of this crashing dragon. So you're on one side of it and you basically just dive forward, rolling, leaping off of this rock and land on the other side, and you feel it land behind you, and you feel like part of the bridge half collapse behind you as you sort of slide through the snow.
Nice.
And I am reeling from the cut in my arm, and I'm cursing myself for hesitating. And then as I look up, this is what starts to happen. I am standing there and everything is silent, and I'm indecisive. And I keep thinking, this thing's falling and I have milliseconds, but in my head, I'm going through this whole process and I keep thinking, okay, what would my dad do? What would my dad do? And I jump off the bridge, and I'm going to use a nature check because I swear there are going to be roots on the side and underneath it. There have to be. There have to be. There have to be. There have to be, Matt.
We will see what the dice determine.
Oh my God, it's a 2 on the dice.
Oh no.
It's the other guys.
Oh,
Aim for the
son of a
bushes.
gun. It hit a 20 and then
aim
it
for the
rolled to the
bushes.
2. Aim for the bushes. It was a 20 and then it rolled for a 2. It went 20 and then 2. So here's the way I think that happens. I think there are vines, but obviously I just ripped them all through. And so they're just not. So I grab it and it like, and now I'm like swinging.
Yeah, you're like dangling
legs,
from the bridge.
yeah, my legs are like, "Wah!" So I'm
Yeah.
actively like swinging. So I don't know, whatever that looks. So I probably don't get hit by the griffin and the dragon, but I'm now holding on.
Not
to
in a good
vine.
position. Yeah.
No.
Yep. You're Luke Skywalker at the end of Empire, just
Absolutely.
hanging onto an antenna, just like, someone come pick me up, please.
That's me.
Awesome. Okay. Alteria is going to try and, let's see. She used acrobatics, athletics. She is going to use insight to basically try and time this. Ooh, okay. 17 on the die, so she's good. She kind of like, she's looking up, watching this dragon plummet down, and she does like she's like bouncing on her feet, like, here we go, here we go, here we go. And she just like dives out of the way and rolls as soon as she sees where the dragon is going to land, and comes up and like brings her arm up to shield herself from like the rubble and dust that flies at her. That brings us to a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 successes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 misses. Very close, but the threshold was 10 successes, and so you successfully completed the skill challenge. The 3 of you are still alive, and there's this strange quiet that kind of comes over the battlefield. The din, the thunder of battle kind of fades around you. The illusion is still there. You're still on this bridge. But the only 2 combatants that you see are this dragon and the Convoker that was fighting it. The dragon is kind of like hanging onto the bridge. Like the dragon basically fell through the bridge and grabbed onto it with its talons, and so it's kind of trying to like grab on and pull itself up. There's blood that is like blue, kind of spurting from multiple wounds in its neck, and every time this dragon tries to roar, there's like blood that just like sort of like comes out of its mouth, spurts out of it. One eye is closed, bleeding. There's just wounds all over it. And from the rubble, the Convoker stands and rubble kind of falls off of his armor. You see that there are multiple punctures in the armor, blood coming through. One arm is like bent at an odd angle. He's got blood coming from his head, and he like limps forward toward the dragon. He reaches down and grabs his sword. And he comes to stand before the dragon, and there's this moment where they're both standing there like teetering, both of them looking like they're about to fall over. And then the dragon lets go and sort of falls off of the bridge. You see it plummet, trailing blue blood into the fog below. The Convoker drops his sword and then topples to the bridge.
Is anybody up there? Guys?
You feel yourself getting pulled up, and it's Alteria actually is like bringing up the vine And as you get close enough to the bridge, she reaches down a hand. You see her hand extended out towards you.
Ooh, your hands are colder than I thought they were going to be.
She like hauls you up and like kind of brushes you off as well.
Thank you. I straighten my little nose curtain.
Got to make sure that nose curtain is just right.
I'm not trying to show any like nasal cleavage.
Is the rest of the battle still going on?
No, it's kind of faded away. You kind of like look around and the battle is like over. There's no more combatants on the bridge. There's still like fire. You can see like on the bridge the like the rocks and the roots that Christoph brought up. So the illusion is still there, but the battle has the battle element of it has faded away, except for this convoker laying on the bridge, bleeding out. And Sander, as you're kind of like looking around, you actually see the convoker's griffin kind of rise up and limp toward the convoker, and it's kind of standing over the convoker, and you see it kind of like reach down and like nudge the convoker and try to get him up, but he doesn't move.
I would walk over to the convoker and say, "Are you all right?"
Redium says, cliffhanger. Now that's how you know you're a provoker.
Oh, God. That's... Oh, man. Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're in a classic Zoom now, baby.
Are we back? Okay, cool. Yeah, I had to get rid of the overlay because Mitsurium Spaghetti, because the overlay wasn't pulling my Zoom window. So we're gonna finish the session in this janky ass Zoom capture window, but we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
we're doing it, baby.
We're gonna limp across the finish line if it kills us. No session 4. No session 4.
No
part 4.
No
part
part 4. All right, so Sander, you are approaching this downed convoker, and as you approach it, it's the griffin kind of like takes up a defensive posture over the body of its rider, fur and feathers sort of bristling, and it hisses and growls at you, sort of in this defensive posture, even though it is very clearly wounded.
Yeah, and I would just extend my hand, like both hands, just like this, like, and I would take one step back.
And I don't know if you'd require a roll for this, Matt, but I would attempt to calm the griffin using animal handling.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a roll of animal handling, and you can have advantage as Sander is there helping you as well.
Great.
While he's doing that, Holly, what are you doing on the back of this other griffin? The griffin is kind of like wheeling around back towards the bridge, and you see the rider has kind of like faded away from the saddle, and so you're on your own on this griffin as it's wheeling back toward the bridge.
She hears a voice in her mind, and it's a voice of someone she's never heard before. And they say something very strange and completely out of context. They say, "Ahoy there, Justicar." And then she sees someone looking her in the eyes, and she snaps out of it. And you see the griffin kind of Tokyo drifting on its claws, on its paws and claws on the bridge, just kind of scraping the bridge with its claws as it grinds to a halt. And Holly's there on the back of this thing. Gonna roll animal handling as well, and she for a moment feels like she belongs on the back of this creature, and she knows its name in the moment. Gray Scream. It shakes its charcoal feathers, and the fluffing of the merlot colored feathers down kind of like emanates out and creates this interesting pattern on the griffin, and then the griffin fades out and is gone. And there she is standing there, feeling for a moment that she feeling that river bear training from the old days come into life.
Yeah, it's actually a very strangely similar sort of experience, and you feel a kind of you feel a kinship with this creature even as it fades away. And you come to land on the bridge, and you see Sander and Kristoff kind of with their hands out trying to calm this other griffin that's over the body of this convoker. And then you see Alteria there, and her daggers are dripping with this blood. And she looks at you, Holly, and just kind of nods. Well done. Kristoff, you holding out your hand, what do you say to this griffin to get it to calm down?
I think I would probably speak something in Elvish. I'm sure that I have some sort of a training in calming wild creatures, making sure that they don't get harmed. It's probably something that we have to do quite often in the Highlands. And so it would be like Matt, what does the Elvish language sound roughly like in Aeronoth? Do you have something for that, or?
I don't, but I imagine that it's very flowery, but with a lot of like glottal stops. So it has this like very like beautiful sort of flow to it, but with these sort of punctuation sort of throughout that just like very like hard stops in the sounds.
That's great. And so what I'm doing is that, but it's got a sing-song sort of quality to it. And this is something that is almost the equivalent of what a human or half-elf could do if they didn't know the full language, but knew maybe like a nursery rhyme or some sort of thing in it, you know? And so I'm essentially doing that over and over, very quietly, very calmly. And it has this hypnotic effect. And I'm just kind of calming it so that it knows. And maybe the words involve things like peace and calm and peace and calm, you know, things like that.
The griffin, the fur and the feathers kind of lay flat once more. And you can see the exhaustion and the pain that this griffin is experiencing. And it almost kind of like backs up. And again, it kind of comes down and nudges its rider with its beak. And it actually flips this convoker over. And he like lays flat on the bridge. And as he rolls over, anyone, you know, within 15 feet can tell that he's already dead. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of injuries, and his face is already sort of pallid looking. But as he rolls over, you see he's this large man, muscular build, very broad shoulders, ebon skinned with very like close shorn dark hair that is streaked with gray. His eyes are open, staring lifelessly up at the sky, and they're these very striking, like steel gray eyes. His skin, the skin that you can see, is lined with scars, lots of burns. You can see a lot of burn scarring on his arms and on his neck and even parts of his face. And I think that this is a face that is well known enough in Aeronoth, a historical figure that all of you would likely recognize, that this is Eros the Reclaimer, and this is the day that he died. Oh, and as he rolls over, from his hand rolls a stone sphere. You all recognize it, and it's in two pieces as it rolls out of his hand.
I feel like that would bump into Sander's boot or something.
Right?
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Nate. Wouldn't be Provokers without me dropping internet and Nate being muted.
Sander would try to pick it up.
You reach down and you pick up the piece of the sphere that is not part of the sphere that you currently have, the missing piece, this sort of jagged chunk of stone. And as soon as you reach down and pick that up, Sander, the illusion is gone. All of you are standing in a room at the end of a long corridor. The room is pretty nondescript. And there's a there's a leather couch.
A proof copy of Ironsworn.
Yeah, a proof copy of Ironsworn. There's a sort of a coffin, the stone coffin, sitting in the middle of this room. And it is sort of unadorned other than this coffin with like stairs leading up to it. There's a sort of a subtle light that is emanating from this crystal sort of hanging down from the ceiling. And on the lid of this coffin is carved the likeness of this man that you just saw die. He's holding his sword to his chest in kind of a very like Knights Templar sort of look. And Sander, you are holding in your hand this piece of the sphere.
What happens if we join them together? I'm frightened.
I wish that I could tell you, Alteria says, but I do not know.
Sander looks at Holly and Kristoff and says, should we do this or wait?
I'm tired of waiting.
I say we do it. And I won't make you do it alone. And I hold my hand out.
Mm-hmm. And Sander gives you the new piece and pulls from one of the pouches. I think I have it still, but I don't know. It's changed hands a few times. Pulls out from his pack the other and holds it out to you to add the new piece to this one.
And then I would definitely look at everyone like right now, like, and kind of get ready to, I would put my left foot down in case it blasts me back or there's some sort of a percussive like sound or concussive force. And I just kind of look at Sander like, let's do this.
Yep. And, just kind of that like awkward, like, okay.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Slowly getting closer.
I think maybe there would even be like, depending, like I've always imagined it as being jagged. So I think it would be really funny if there's just this culmination and it's a buildup and then it's, oh, wait.
Yeah. The USB port, you put it in the wrong way. Yeah.
You go, oh, okay. Go again. Yeah. Just.
So you're pushing these two pieces together and, at first, there's nothing really happening. You both get the sense that there's, it's almost like when you're pushing two magnets together, there's like, there is like a force that's kind of pushing them apart a little bit. And as you get them closer, you both kind of feel yourself starting to get like repelled backwards, like pushed backward. And there's a rush of wind and lightning kind of crackles between the two pieces, kind of sparking between them. The wind kind of begins cycloning around the two of you. And you're trying to push these pieces together, but they're not quite fitting. You feel this immense force pushing back on both of you. Holly, you see this happening. You see the two of them sort of in this swirling vortex of wind and frost that is happening as they're trying to push these two pieces together. What do you do?
I just rolled athletics. Though the wind actually puts her on her heels, and she even flies back a little bit. It overpowers her against a wall or some sort of maybe the sarcophagus or some sort of other element in this room. She slides back towards it. It's hard to keep her eyes open.
And the silent one kind of is stepping forward, getting pushed back by these. There's sort of like this wind that goes like, it's like these shock waves that are coming out as they're trying to push these two pieces together. And she comes up behind Sander and just like puts her hands on your shoulders, Sander, and kind of like just steadies you and is just like pushing on you from the back. And you can see like rocks and shit like hitting her in the face as she's like basically pushing her arms through a vortex to like push you forward. And she shouts, no, well, she doesn't shout because she doesn't have a mouth, Matt. She says in your mind, Holly, you can do this. You can do this. They need you.
Holly works to get to her feet and starts stumbling towards the vortex. She rolls a natural 1. I think that there's an inversion of power and pressure, where before these two things were being kept apart. But with the silent one's help, it inverts and thunk, it comes together. And so Holly comes flying into the vortex. And I don't know what she hits or where she goes or what happens, but she gets like sucked in.
Everyone gets sucked in as the two pieces go. There's like a, and everyone sort of like collides, and there's like a pulling of all of the dirt and rocks and frost and stuff in this room. Everything is pulled towards this point in the sphere, and so all of you just like collide in this dog pile and then collapse as the vortex ceases its swirling. And who's holding the completed sphere?
I don't want to overstep, but I feel like the journey we've been on, it should be Sander.
Sure. I mean, I imagine I'm kind of on my back. And
Unless it kills him. Unless it kills him. In which case, no.
No, it's fine. You're all going to die. I just want to know who's dying first. Yeah.
And it's on my chest as I'm just blown back. And I just kind of take it, cradle it in my arms, hold it up.
You've seen the sphere shift before. You've seen parts of it rotate. And in times when you've used it to close bleak rifts, you've seen it react and move. You know that it is not an object that is, what am I trying to say? An immovable object, an object that doesn't articulate. And as you're holding it here, laying on the ground, Sander, you see those pieces rotate, and there's sort of this hiss of stone on stone as it rotates one way and then the other, and then it opens. It unfurls like a blossoming flower, the top kind of twisting and then unfurling into a spiral, and it creates these sort of delicate stone petals. It's beautiful. There's a light that plays upon these petals as it opens, and you don't know where the light comes from until it fully opens, and you see at the center of this stone flower, there's like a marble-sized gemstone, and it's crackling with energy and glowing with this familiar violet light shot with blood red. There's a quiet, almost pleasant but still unnerving hum that is emanating from this power source. And Sander, you don't know for sure, but you feel like you could potentially manipulate this further, or perhaps even take petals off of this the way that it looks. You're not sure exactly how it works, but this is not the full extent of its movement and articulation.
Yeah, and I just hold it up, and I look at my companions, and I see this violet red light reflected in their eyes.
Alteria kind of comes to her knees. She's breathing hard and she's looking at the stone. You did it. The stone is complete.
I'm holding my breath, and I say, I all of a sudden catch myself and start breathing again. So what comes next?
I told you there are others who have entered the Bleak. Other people in Aranoth who are conduits, as you are. 2 of them we know of. We know their location. We should make for the Wayward Wanderer in Gwynterod as quickly as possible. They will be coming for them. And we're going to cut there. And we see the Wayward Wanderer, this crumbling tower surrounded by this quaint farming village, Newbrook. There are people pouring out the door of the Wayward Wanderer, kind of leaning on each other, laughing, sort of last call as they leave the Wayward Wanderer. And Rianne, this human woman in her later years, her hair sort of streaked with silver. She's standing there with a rag, and she tosses the rag over her shoulder, and she says, "Now, Turl, you make sure that you get home, okay? I don't want to find you asleep in the street again like last week." "All right." And she closes the door behind her and walks into the Wayward Wanderer, kind of looking at the mess, just like spilled beer and plates with food still on them and stuff just tossed everywhere, tables overturned, chairs overturned, and she kind of sighs, and at her back she hears the door open again, and she goes, "We're closed." "I said we're closed. Can you please..." "Oh." And she turns around, and there are 2 figures standing in the doorway with hoods and cloaks. "I'm sorry, folks, but last call was a bit ago. You'll have to find somewhere else to do your drinking this evening, I'm afraid." They step into the light. She sees their purple eyes. One of them says, "We're not looking for drinks this evening. We're looking for you, Rianne, and your husband, Rorge." Rianne looks over the mantle where there is a staff and a hammer. And as the 2 figures bring Mitsurium blades out of their gauntlets and rush forward, Rianne reaches towards the staff, and we see it tremble. And that is where we are going to end our session for tonight.
You cannot put them in danger.
Oh, no, thank you. Oh, no, thank you. You can keep going. Yeah,
Mommy,
don't
Daddy,
stop for
no!
me.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
stop for me,
Yeah.
silly. Keep going. No, we're good.
Hey,
I have
but
half
we're
a
gonna,
soda.
we're gonna play again in a year, so definitely come.
Coming next holiday season.
The Vault of Aeras, Part 17.
Cookbook of the Realms 3.
Cookbook of the Realms 3. No, we are gonna be playing again here soon. You can count on it, and I've also got some other potential Aeronoth stuff in the works here, based on some things that we talked about in the Provokers reunion that we did a couple months ago, and some other stuff too. So definitely keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. But I wanted to get a session in this year. I wanted there to be a Provokers session in 2021. I felt like it was really important, and so I'm excited to be back in Aeronoth and exploring that world and its lore and history further. So I had a lot of fun running this session. It's always a blast playing with you guys, and yeah, I'll turn it over to y'all for your outros, and then we'll call it a night here. So we'll go in reverse order, switching it up here. Nate, why don't you do your outro first?
Yeah, my name is Nate. You can find me on WASD20 on YouTube, and I had a great time tonight. It's so good to I mean, the Wayward Wanderer ending. It's good to be home.
Oh, it's good to be home. That's a great way to phrase that, Nate. Thank you. Tim, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't know, man. Matt, you got a gift for this stuff, and every time we play, I'm like, oh, it got better. And so I'm just really happy that I get to be one of the people that gets to sit in the seat and be on the receiving end of it. So but I just wanted to say, like, for anyone who's watching, especially if you're watching it during this time of year, there's always someone listening, and you matter. And so comment on this video, and we love you. And no matter what, remember that we want to hear from you, and we're thankful to have you. So yeah, let's keep on provoking.
Yeah, and in that vein, if you are looking for a place to hang out, now or at any point in the future, the Absolute Tabletop official group on Facebook, and we also have a Discord that we're trying to be more active in. Barker has been doing live chats in there pretty much every day this week, which is pretty awesome. Definitely come check out the Absolute Tabletop community. It's a really friendly, open, inclusive space for gamers from all walks of life, and if you're just looking for people to talk to and hang out and kind of geek out about stuff, it's a good place to go. So definitely seek us out if you want to do so. Barker, go ahead, man.
Yeah, thank you for running this game. Thanks to the players. Thanks for watching. This was a lot of fun. My name is Barker. I am really excited to see what Edric experienced, whether in a little bit of flashback scenes or something next session, or in a one-shot for Mike. Yep. And I loved that you took the dice, kind of fade twisted a little bit, and ran with it with the kind of river bear shaped mask. I don't know. That was really dope. I did mention a repeating crossbow in the reuniting session. And so you mentioned that there was a place that made them. So I will open the sarcophagus at the end and find the repeating crossbow.
Actually,
Aeras the Reclaimer.
Eros the Reclaimer had two repeating crossbows. And get some. Yeah, he was like,
yep.
You've been
2 more on his back.
Yeah, yep.
If you remember, it was Mike Lasham's idea that it was a belt-fed repeating crossbow.
Yes. Yep.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
And there should be two huge holsters too, like huge enough to hold. Yeah.
Comedic.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they work. So make fun of me if you want.
I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Arcane lately, and there's a character in that essentially has like a Victorian steampunk minigun. So I kind of want you to have that, Barker.
Nice. I'm in. I'm moving into Mandalorian territory. I'm not going to argue against you.
Yeah. Okay. Holly has an A10 Warthog gun. Yep.
It's just a drone. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you, Matt, for running. This was a ton of fun. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, for watching. And as always, your patience and support, even though I'm sporadic at best with this stuff, is always so appreciated. So thank you so much. yeah, I think that's it for me. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope that everyone has a really good last couple weeks of the year here. And let's hope that 2022 has some cool stuff in store for everybody. So take care. Happy gaming all. And may your pizzas always be hot and ready. Now let's see if my thanks for watching screen didn't get broken. Hey, it didn't. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching.